So today what I'm going to do is I want to go through two areas with you, right? I want to go through the risk, right, which is the P3 area. I want to actually link the theories to your your case study, and also I'm going to go into the governance bit, that is the third section. The governance here is quite light, what they have given, but because of that I'm going to go into the governance that's given in our foundation, right, in our law paper, law and ethics. Governance is included. I'm going to go there because that will give you a very good flavor of this what the corporate governance is. Okay, the reason I'm going quite deep into it because there is a lot of issues here with our current company and specifically related to governance. Okay, and there could be questions there. You can apply what you learn wherever into any other questions that they ask as well. It may not be a direct governance question, but you might be able to have that, include it, right? So basically we are talking about what is risks, right? Uncertainty, risk and return, very important. Now, why is it so important? Because we are in a business, right, which is really thriving in risks, right? We have fundamental risk, particular risk, where individuals may have some control, speculative, right, and pure risks. And pure risk, when it happens, it's really outcome is harmful. Give me an example of a pure risk. Any example? Yeah, fire. Okay, there's no, you don't have a fire, you don't have any control. A fire has taken place, you don't have any control, right? Yeah, war, yeah, correct. Okay, so particular risk are risk over which individuals may have some control. Now these are the risks that we are interested in, okay, because these are the things that we can have control over, and that's the one that we are using our models like the TARA model, for example. How do we mitigate our risks, right? And we have strategic risks as well as operational risks. Right, now let us look at our strategic risks, what they are. Now what I want you to do is, as we go along, we want to have an active kind of learning here. You should write down what the strategic risks are. So I want you to write down 3 strategic risks, right, where our case it will apply to. Right? For our dream park, what would be some of the strategic risks? Right? So strategic risks are business and non-business risks. Okay? If you can write down business risk 3, non-business risk 3, and provide the context to it. Okay? If you can do that right away, that will be great, because that will give us some things to talk about, right? Let me open the chat box and see. Yep. So what I would like, one person can type here, right, and see these are the risks, and all the others just go on writing in your in the papers, right, where you can share with us later, either in a Word or PowerPoint, it doesn't matter. Where you can write. So give me a business risks as well as non-business risks. So Nirmal, would you be able to give a business risk, please, if you can type? Yeah. Another big brand opens the same business we are into. Okay, another theme park. Okay, Disney is coming in to where we are. And new technology, what will happen with our new technology? Exactly. Walid Reyes writes virtual reality. Okay, so now you understand when you're writing your answer how nicely you can put these are the strategic business risks. What are you doing there? You're showing your technical capabilities there and integrating it into your answer nicely. Okay, so remember the word strategic business risks, strategic non-business risks, right? Those are the things. Give me a non-business risk, please. What can happen with Dream Park? Yeah. Forex, yes, very good. And yes, bank decides to increase the rate of interest. That's a bit of a disaster for us because we've got a lot of money tied up with our bank. Right. Nirma says natural disaster. Why natural disaster? Natural disaster. Will it come under strategic risks? Any accidents in ride? No. Okay. So you got to be careful. You see, these are all risks that we can have control over, right? So accident disaster is related to something where, you know, accident disaster is we have that particular product that's a ride, and then we are looking at ways of mitigating any risks. Okay, so I think you got the gist of it. Operational risks. What are operational risks that you can give me? Okay, what can take place? What can take place with Dream Park? Hacking, yes. IT failure, right? And remember, yeah, it is only, can you hear me, guys? Akram, it's only me who's talking, not anybody else. All right. Okay. No, it's only me. Right. So, okay. Thanks. So here what we're talking is IT failure. Remember, if you're thinking of, you know, going into big data, we have other people's information here. This is going to be a big disaster, right? We have credit card information of people. Imagine if somebody hacks into it, right? This whole thing is exposed and we get heavy fines. Guys, I need you to mute the mics, please. Right. Now, these are other different types of risks that you can get, right? Yeah, software gets corrupted, competitor risks, commodity, so all kinds of risks are there. Okay, so the risk aspect is a very key topic here in our scenario, and you should kind of understand, right? You should write down what are my strategic risks, what are my operational risks, right? And you should see, and you should try to kind of figure out what these are and how will you mitigate them, right? So let's go back and say operational risk, business interruption. I want, let's say, Akram, if you can talk to me about business interruption, give me an example. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Yes. Yeah. Puneet has also mentioned labor strikes. Yeah, very good. Santosh mentioned labor strikes as well. Yeah. So I'll stop you there. 1 second. Sorry, I'll stop you there. tell me how you will mitigate how these risks. How will you, one thing is, how will you plan for a risk like this? How to manage this risk? I mean, it doesn't have to happen, but you need to kind of plan how you're gonna act, if this happens. What is it called? There's a particular word for it. The opposite of business interruption is what? What is the opposite? BCP. Yeah, thanks Vinod. Business continuity planning, right? And from an IT, if I look at it, disaster recovery management. Very good. Yeah. So basically what I'm looking at is people need to anticipate and say, if this happens, what am I going to do? Right? So for the example that you gave, Akram, can you give me, how would you have planned to mitigate it? Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So one second, Akram. So I'm trying to structure it now. I'm saying, well, one thing is a ride stopping, another one is a strike. Okay, I'm taking both. Now, if a ride stops, now each of these things, risks, you need to basically prioritize them. Yeah. Just because a ride stops doesn't mean my whole park stops, correct? I can contain it, right? So depending on what it is, I'm able to prioritize my the risks. On top of it, you were also saying you need to communicate. So for example, with a ride, it will be someone else, and with regards to labor, it will be some other people that you need to communicate. So you need to find out who your key communicators, the stakeholders are, correct? Yeah, so I hope you guys are writing it down, because I'm not writing it down. Okay, so there is a structure to this, right? So you can see how my thought pattern is going through, right? I'm looking at what can be the disasters, prioritizing them, who are my stakeholders, right? Who should I, because yes, I know that it is the engineers, but how will I communicate? Which engineer, right? Which department? Your key contacts need to be there, right? Now Tarun has mentioned insurance, right? Very good. So we need to find, now I have identified these are my issues, this is the risk priority, stakeholders, then I'm going to look at how can I manage this risk, and that's where the TARA model comes in. Okay, yes, Akram. Anything else? Yeah, tell me. So give me another example and go through that structure and tell me how you'll work. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay, so what you're saying is, well, now the thing you're saying they have asked for some amount. You need to identify the key stakeholders. You're negotiating, but at the time of from the time of negotiate, how would the company operate? How would how would it operate? Mm, mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, correct. But during your negotiation, right, you're having these people are not working. How will you manage your park? Mm-hmm. 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 So what is how are you going to manage your communication to your people, the public? See, you see how I'm, it is, it's a chain, right? It is a chain. Yeah? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we're saying is the communication needs to be there to the public very quickly, right? Suddenly, because this happen. I mean, this is again, these kind of strikes happen very very frequently, even with airlines, right? Because they can hold you to ransom. Basically, the airlines say, right, I'm not going to be operating, and it can be just certain sectors of people, may not be the whole airline, maybe certain sectors, right? Certain, maybe the checking counter staff or whatever it is, or maybe the pilots. If the pilots refuse to work, well, that's a problem, then you can do nothing, right? But then you have to be able to communicate very quickly to the public, right, in every way, and also compensation immediately. Okay, if you say you need to decide, I'm going to close the park for 5 days, right, because till I get my head around how am I going to operate, or do I have contingent staff or temporary staff who can come and do something. Okay, so these are, you see, kind of, but there is a definite structure to it. Who is impacted? Who are the people that you need to communicate with, right? Is that clear? Right? Any kind of operational risk, any of these risks, it's the same logic. Yeah, right. Then let us go into risk management, the management that we were talking about. Okay, enterprise risk management. So who here has got a risk register? Anyone who's got in the company who's worked with a risk register? Anybody? Anyone from the bank? because what this so if basically what we're saying is we need to identify all the risks, right, of the company, and then see, and this is a classic case, right? Example, if you certain applications, IT applications, we may call them tier 3, as in they are not all that important, they are not that critical, right, for our operations. So therefore it is tier 3. Yeah, one of them could be accounts payable module, right? We are all familiar with accounts payable module. Now so what is the process? The process itself could be classified as very important, right? The process could be payment to, if I'm working in an airline, right, I will say payment to our fuel suppliers is critical, because if you don't pay on time, we are going to have a big problem. The flights are not going to take off. Yeah. Now, in that process, so the thing is, in an organization, you need to identify what your key processes are, right? And you need to think each of these processes, if you fail, what is the cost? And you as an organization may decide, right, it will vary from one organization to the other. You say, right, if it's $100 million and above, or $50 million and above, that is a massive thing for me, and I will classify that as key process for me. Okay, so then what we say is, well, now if this payment to the fuel supplier fails, it's a massive, it's way more than 50 million for me. When I look at who is linked to this process, I will see there are many applications linked to this process, and guess what? Accounts payable module is there, which is a tier 3 application, and we say, well, tier 3 means it's really, we don't need 24/7 support, right? So you can say, wow, okay, if this process fails, I'm gonna incur a massive loss. What is the alternative? If the application is not there, what is the alternative, right? That is something that you need to think about as well. So you saw how I looked at the process, right, the key processes, right, and then look at what is the underlying factors of those processes. Any questions here? Right, so the next one is a model. Yeah. Right, I will ask someone else to answer, to say what you think would be the key processes, some of the key processes. If it is not there, the park will shut. You can't operate. What do you think? Any ideas? Yeah? Right? Power? Okay. Correct. So, human resources? Yeah. Right? So each of these, if I look at operational, that is the process of maintenance of the park, right? If I look at maintenance, operations of the equipment, that's the rides, right? If I look at either crowd control or maintenance of the staff, both maintenance of the park, both are kind of the same, or you can separate it, right? These could be some of the key processes. So the thing is, a key process, how do you classify it is a key process or not? Ask the question, if this process is not there, what is the loss, right? Is there a different way of achieving this process? Now, there was a really, it was very funny when we were doing this, in this analysis to find out in this particular company what were the key processes. So when we went to the accountants, they said, oh yeah, this, what we do is a very key process, you know, this is really important. And they said, we need to close the general ledger on time, and we need to have the management accounts, you know, this is very important. We have to send it to the chairman. So the question was asked, well, what if you can't produce it for 1 week? What will happen? Any catastrophes, basically, will someone die? Okay, so in a very shocking sense, you need to shock people to say, you know, really, what will happen? Tell me, right? Is the loss 100 million or above? Yeah. Then suddenly the accountants looked around and say, actually not. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Even payroll process is not important. The reason is, the way you look at it is, can I do it in a different way? Can I pay it in a different way? Because you will immediately go to the bank and ask them, please run the last month's payroll, the same thing, pay it out, right? If my whole payroll system goes for a toss, right? Then you think, well, I can manage the variance. That's fine. People need to be paid, but there is a different way of achieving it. Okay? So the payroll process, is funny enough, doesn't come right at the top, because I have a way of achieving that, another way of paying my staff. Okay? Any other examples you guys can give? Correct. Yes. Not only money, not only monetary loss. I'm looking at fatalities as well. You know, fatalities is a big thing, right? So it can be fatalities. You know, it will reach to that. So that is a big thing for us. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, somebody's written health and safety. Yeah, very key. So in this case, you will, that is, we can't call it, you know, a risk as in, it's something which is already there, right? Where we can talk about, is it operational risk, you see, with our suppliers. So, but we have contracts for that, right? It is with a contract that you manage things like that. These things don't happen overnight, right? So you have to be kind of practical as well when you're answering. Be careful, because these rides are not small amounts of money. It's about 300-400 million. So before you get into a contract like that, you have very clear idea how the payments are going to be made, right? So that is very clear. Right, okay. So if engineers go on strike, what would you guys do? You have to take that thing into consideration, right? Interruptions to operations, yeah? What would you do? So you should have identified in advance, in order for a ride to operate, who are the key people that need to be there, right? That needs to be identified. Then you start saying, what if this role is not there? What would we do? Yeah. engineer. If these engineers are not there, are we able to bring subcontract from somewhere else engineers, right? Is that a possibility? Okay, so these are questions that you have to pose and then find answers, because if you're able to subcontract from somewhere else, right, then you need to know, okay, or even from your other parks you might be able to get some engineers, share engineers, things like that. Okay, but you should have had that agreement in advance, not immediately when it happens run around and say, okay, I want some engineers, right? So did that make, Puneet, does it make sense to you? Very good point, Akram. Very good point, right? So I'm going outside. Correct. Yeah, yeah. So you're saying I'm giving my lead time as well, and saying I will call upon for somebody to come in at this time. Like, I'm giving a request, I'm providing a request. I want somebody to come in within 2-3 hours or things like that, Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, I mean, it's a thing where we can also include in the contract, you see. Yeah, right. Because then we say we want X amount of support during a year, and we can include it in the contract, and we say, right, we already pay for it in advance or something like that, and say this is the kind of support that we require, right? It's already specified, and we can use them on whatever capacity we want, either to do maintenance or either to actually be engineers, right? So both are there. Exactly. So that's what I said. We have a contract in advance with these guys where we book time with them, right? Say I want X amount and I will call upon you, and this is the lead time I want the person to be in our premises, right? I'll give you a lead time as well. Is that clear? Now we have got CIMA's risk management cycle. Identify the risk, assess the scale of the risk, right? Develop risk response strategy, implementation strategy and allocate responsibilities, implement, monitor and of controls, review, refine process, do it again, and establish risk management group and set goals. Now this is, if you see, we gave some scenarios before, and didn't we do this? We did this, isn't it? We went round and we were asking the questions and providing answers to those scenarios, right? So I guess you understood now, how important this risk is and how to answer certain questions as well, right? So Walid is writing, let me see what Walid is writing. Also, we may analyze between the loss in case of closure and payment to hired engineers. If necessary, we may offer extra amount if they can arrange our required lead time. Yeah. So different tactics that we will use with our people who are working with us, right? So the mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So I will pose, I I understand what you're saying. I will pose the question to the group here and see what they will come up with. Anybody wants to provide an answer to Puneet's question? I think I have spoken a lot, so I'm going to give somebody else to talk. Well, anyone else? Santosh, what about you? Mm-hmm. 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 Right. This is in your company, is it? Is this in your company, or is this with regards to our example? Right, okay. Okay. So what's the supplier supplying you? Oh, yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Correct. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, right. So since you're in oil and gas, you can take up the next section as well, right? The risk architecture, because I know in oil and gas there's heavy focus on the risk and the culture, right? So can you just elaborate a little bit, taking this model and elaborating it into your company, and for our company as well, it will be the same thing, right? For our company, it will be. So, in the sense, what would be the compensation is you can work it in, and you have to, yeah, you have to negotiate with the supplier, right? Because yeah, because let's say I put in 80% occupancy of my park, I'm getting 100,000. Just, I'm just saying for argument's sake, 100,000. The supplier will say, okay, either they will agree or tell you, don't talk nonsense, I'm not going to do that. It depends what power position you're in, right? If you're a big player like Disney, people want to work with you, right? If the supplier is in a very strong position, right, then you also have to work and negotiate with the supplier, and supplier will say, right, okay, I will work in this way, and I'm sure it's not going to happen because we have so many other people that we work with, so I'm sure that we can provide, and these are the examples as well, and they will go they will work with you on that, right? It depends. You can't have a answer, just one answer. There'll be multitude of answers here. It depends how strong you are, and it depends on how strong the supply is as well, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Correct. Correct. If you're operating in Dubai, that's what you have to accept. And you need to, what Dubai is saying is, well, you're starting a building. I don't want to have 100 buildings built, right? It doesn't look nice. So if you come in, you need to finish it off within this time, right? And they will have a lot of clauses as well in there. I mean, they do this. I had another student actually who was working in, name will come to me, and they had in Dubai Mall, they had quite big shops, right? And what she was saying was, Dubai Mall gives them, actually penalizes them, and they'll, there are penalties if they don't finish the shops on time, right? They're supposed to start and finish on a particular time, and they need to finish it off, otherwise they will fine you. Okay, so because otherwise it doesn't look nice in the mall. You can't have half built things all along. So I'm gonna stop there with questioning on that area, and I'm gonna ask I think Santosh, right, who is talking to me about from oil and gas, and how does the risk architecture apply to our dream park. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Have you got a system in place to capture all the risks? And you produce reports on that? Yes. Yeah. Right. Now, in case of our dream park, do we have a separate risk department here? Do we have a separate risk director, a risk non-executive committee? Do we have those? Right. Yeah. So at least we've got that. Anything else that we've got? So they don't state very clearly. Right. Yeah. So they have an audit committee as well as a risk committee, but they don't state very clearly whether they have a department specially focusing on risks, isn't it? Right? That is not there. Right? So this could be a kind of a proposal that you can bring in as well, depending on the question that's asked, right? Because now tell me, what would a risk department do that others don't do? how would a risk department add value to this company? The operations. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So they will provide that extra, I think, overview saying, well, operations people are carrying out the operations. They will look at it, the risk in strategic risk, operational risks, and then planning, assessing, measurement, all those things that they have to do, right? And you can see a whole horde of things that they have to do: communication, training, reinforcing a risk culture. All these things they will be able to do, right? Focus on it and execute it, rather than you expect the operational guys to do it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Okay. So then we have the risk appetite and risk culture. What did you think our in Dream Park? What is our risk appetite and risk culture like? What do you think? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What else? Mm-hmm. 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 Right. In this case, what they're asking is the risk appetite will depend on few things, right? What type of operation are we running? What are the influences, right? What are the shareholder demands? Exactly. We're in a very risky business, and it's not, we can't afford any type of things with regards to our rides or our animals. We use a lot of animals, so it is a risky business that we're in, and the risk culture should be built, right? Can there be fatalities? Yes, there can be. So we need to plan for all these things. Okay, how we are going to mitigate those things. Okay. So there it's twofold, right? We could also say insurance, and also there is in your ticket when you go bungee jumping or doing all kinds of things, risky activities, it clearly states in your ticket that they will not take any responsibility, right? So we can have that type of thing as well, right, where we do not take the risk. We get the we tell this to the participant very clearly. Well, it's up to you, right? So when they go into the roller coaster ride, it is very clearly stated, and I have not gone in roller coaster because I'm a coward, right? I'm really scared. So I don't know. I've not bought a ticket even. So, but the guys who have gone would say, now, if you in the ticket, behind the ticket, there would be terms and conditions, right? So if you had a, sorry. Right, let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Correct. Correct. Mm-hmm. But we also have to remember we are running a business, and there are individuals who will take advantage of all these things. It is very clearly written. These are the pros and cons. These are my rules and regulations. It's very clearly written, right? You shouldn't be riding this if you have these conditions, right? There are clauses there as well. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it, right? Because you as a business putting out there and saying, individual, please read this. Here you go. If you want to participate, come and participate. However, you take that decision. I'm not responsible. Me as the company is not responsible for that. You have taken the decision. Okay? I'm just the operator. You have taken the decision to come on the ride. Right? So if there is anything, you need to take responsibility for that, because it is a very, I think in Asia they don't sue companies, but in the West it's a huge issue, right? For the slightest thing, companies are sued, so they're very, very careful. Even for example, even in Australia, if you're a yoga teacher, yoga practitioner, if you're teaching anybody, even for free, you need to take insurance, public liability insurance, right? You have to be extremely careful because people can sue you. Yeah. So let us exactly. Yeah. True. Now, risk assessment. We spoke about that. You have to identify the risk, analyze it, map it, right, and consolidate. And sometimes you need to consolidate. When you consolidate all the risks, you will see, as an individual, it may not be a big thing. But if you consolidate the risks, you will see it's a big issue, right? And then, how are we managing the risk, right? So this is where we say the TARA model and saying, do you transfer, do you accept, do you reduce or avoid? Okay, so depending on each type of whatever the risk it is, you will consciously take the decision when you're doing the risk register. This is one of those activities you will very clearly consciously take on and say, right, this is the activity that we are going to be taking. If you accept the risk, what activities shall we do? Okay, you have to plan in advance. If you're transferring the risk, how am I going to transfer? To whom am I going to transfer? Right? If I'm controlling the risk, how am I going to control or reduce this risk? What are the actions that we have to take? If you're abandoning or avoiding the risk, okay, how do we avoid it? Is it actually, can we avoid it? Right? So these are questioning. You have to really question yourself as to how to deal with the risk. So what sort of risks? Tell me, put it down there in your chat box. What sort of risks will you accept? It is low frequency and low severity. What sort of risk would you accept for our dream park? Any idea? Let's see. Any idea? Vinod, anything from you? What are the low risks? Are so low we are saying, yeah, we will accept it for our dream park. Power. What about power? Outage, power outage? All right, okay, yeah. So we know clearly what to do. In what sense? Okay, fine. Uh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right, so what sort of risk would we transfer? Tarun, what sort of risk would you transfer in the dream park? Mm-hmm. So medium risk that we may claim insurance, right? So what sort of thing would it be? Control or reduce? Give me another example for control or reduce. So there's currency risks. So currency risks, where would you put it? Control or reduce? Yeah. Okay, so let us go. I think you guys are all right with it. So now let us go into the next area. Risk responsibilities, right? So in the risk policy statement, you need to state all this. Risk management personnel. These are the type of personnel that you're looking for, right? We have a risk committee, right? Do we have, I don't think we have this risk management specialist, right? Because it's not stated there. Then if you look at your risk management function, this is what they have to do. Question might be asked, okay, what are the things you think should be there in a risk management function ideally, right? How should be, I mean, what is the role that they play, okay, and what value addition can they bring? So these are typical questions that they can ask, because we don't see it there. Risk committee is there. A risk register, we just spoke about it, right? And risk reporting, okay. So this is very clearly stated about the risks that are pertaining to the company, and they report these risks as well. So any other questions on this? Yes. So that's the question I asked before, isn't it? Because we are saying, why should we have a risk department? What are they going to do? How are they going to add value, right? Now, corporate governance is our next topic, a key topic for us, right? And I would like to go through that. Now, in here, the corporate governance, what are the principles, right? I'm going to go into our foundation, right? And let me give me a second. I'll take that corporate governance book. So do go into your Dream Park corporate governance area, because I'll be asking you questions on that. Okay. So what do you think corporate governance is? And can you give me an example of where corporate governance had not worked? Okay, anybody else? Thank you. Anybody else? Enron, yes. Segregation of CEO chairman positions, yeah. Yeah, good. So, do you remember, guys, Cadbury Committee, right? This came into being some time ago, right? Cadbury Committee. Nothing to do with the chocolates, of course. Causes of poor corporate governance. And it is related to the agency problem. Now, can you tell me what the agency problem is? What is the agency problem? Right? Right, yeah. Because the directors are supposed to be what? Yeah, correct. Yeah, okay. So basically, we have financial stakeholders and interest stakeholders as well. The financial stakeholders are these guys, right, who have financial interest in our company, right? So even when you're doing a stakeholder analysis, you can talk about that. That's a point that you can discuss, right? Now, what is shareholder activism? Shareholders' activism describes the involvement of shareholders in the affairs of the company and its management. Right? This is one of the key things. It's leading to these problems as well. Right? You get private institutions, private companies, private investors, as well as large institutions. Right? So what would the large institutions do? But how would they influence? Yes. Yeah. So Tanzina, are you able to talk to us? If you can. So this is where big companies are able to influence and put a lot of pressure on the directors, right? And that may lead to unethical behavior as well, right? So they would behave in such a way that is the directors that will not in a professional way try to show profits which are not there actually, right? Now let us go to one of the key areas. Now this is the development of UK corporate governance, right? This is it. Basically, we have the Cadbury Committee, which talks about the best practices. Greenberry Committee talks about directors' remuneration. Now, in this case, this is really important. The Humble Committee talks about best practices as well, right? So, I will share this with you, right? Certain extracts from this book I'm going to share because I thought this is really good. It gives you a very good picture, and because let's say here these you can apply directly from here to your answer, right? So they say boards of listed companies should include independent non-executive directors. Then they talk about the non-executive directors as well, right? Service contracts of executive directors limited to 3 years, right? And they talk about the nomination committee consisting of independent non-executive directors. Now we need to identify what about our nomination committee. Have we got Saib, can you hear me? Somebody's saying my voice is cutting off. Right. So basically what we're saying is we have got people there who are not very in the committees, they're not independent, right? Because they have been working with the company before, right? So in this case, it is not very, their opinions are not very unbiased, right? It could be biased. Now look at the Greenberry report, right? This is also something pretty good, which again you can take into your answers, right? And they talk about the Hempel report, right? All this I will share with you, okay? But just reading is not good enough. What you have to do is basically then apply it and see and actually go on writing. So I will give you some questions where you have to make write the answers, okay? So 1 second. Are you clear about the governance now? Any questions on the governance area? How do you think we could improve our governance? Let me ask the question. How do you think we could improve our governance? Okay, Santosh, what about you? Mm-hmm. 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 Internal as in what sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all what they're asking is you need to have those committees, and the committees should comprise of non-executive directors, and the non-executive directors should be unbiased individuals, people who are quite independent, right? So if you look at our board and the non-executive directors, do you think we have a very good corporate governance framework? What do you think? The balance is fine? Mm-hmm. So, right, okay. Tarun, what do you think? Do we have a good corporate governance framework? Do we need improvement? Or do you agree with what was just said? Mm-hmm. 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 There's room for improvement. Okay. What about anybody else who thinks our corporate governance is not good? Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Now I have a big problem. Yeah. Yeah. Go on. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Okay. So I have a big concern, and you guys didn't pick it up, is the remuneration, right? Because they have this golden halo and the golden parachute. And when you look at the remuneration and how the governance around it, I mean, there's a lot of governance, the comments are there in the Cadbury reports and the other reports, how the remuneration should be defined and what needs to go into it, especially directors. So this is not very clear. There's no defined KPIs. There's nothing to say, okay, if you have achieved this, right, in your tenure, that you have achieved X amount of profitability, blah blah blah, then you will get a remuneration, a golden parachute. Yeah. And if when you're coming in, there has to be some KPI, some justification as to why we give these directors this amount of money. Nothing is there. So for me, I think there's a huge room for improvement here, because there's a lot of people. If you see, there are quite a few people who have been in the business before now becoming NEDs. Obviously, that's not a very good position to be. Okay. Any other ideas? So, role of the board, this is the role. Okay. Yes, performance. Yeah, performance-based remuneration is missing, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct. Correct. Yes, yes, yes. No, it doesn't say that. The thing is, it's not a case of giving a bonus is not the problem, right? The problem is on what basis the justification. Yeah, giving something, giving a bonus, giving extra something is fine, but based on what? That is not there. Can the others hear me? Right. Okay. So there is. Okay. Let me type. 1 second. That was side, I think. So some disturbances there, still audible. Vinod, okay, others can hear, right? So getting back to it, basically what we're saying is we need justification, right? And the problem is that justification is not there. If NEDs are there in the remuneration committee and the nomination committee, right, these guys should be independent, not people who have been in the organization before and then come here. Okay, if that happens, you're going to be biased, right? It is only one? Two of them. Yeah. So check, there are quite a few, there are a couple of people who have been there. Okay. Right. So mm-hmm. 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 Right. So depend on what non-executive committees that they're in as well, right? So basically what we are looking at is people who can provide unbiased opinions, right? The role of the board, if you look at it, is develop and ensure implementation of strategy. These are, and again, it's very clearly stated where the chairman should not be performing the CEO role. Okay, that's there as well. So it will vary from one company to the other how they remunerate the NEDs, right? And it will be each visit an X amount, whether it's each time they come in, they are engaged, they will be paid X amount, and that will be in a it's very clearly stated. It's not as if they will be paid a monthly remuneration. Okay, and this is where they talk about the SOX, they talk about the London Stock Exchange, right? And then finally they talk about the relationship with the shareholders, the recommendations, right? So send notice of AGMs. Like there might be some questions on this on the governance, because there's a lot of hints there, right, about this governance story. So I don't know which variant, but there might be. It's highly likely. Okay. So again, recommendations about the AGM. Are they using the AGM effectively, right? That's another question that may come, right? And the ethics. Now, ethics, I won't go into detail with you because it is part of every question. You need to talk about ethics, right? In the sense, if there is an opportunity, please do talk about the ethics. right? Any other? Yes. So if you look at the founder, how long has he been there with us? Yeah, how long has he been working? Sorry? Right, so 1962 to 2013, he has been there, right? And what role has he performed? Okay, he had a lot of time to provide his direction. Okay, and do you think he has provided right direction? Okay, business is successful. Anyone else? Any other views? Mm-hmm. 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 Correct. Yeah. Correct. Mm-hmm. So I have my question mark on this founder, because he's been there from 1962 to 2013, and like you said, Akram, he's been quite conservative, and we're successful. We are not making losses as such, but we have huge debt as well, right? So that's a concern. So what I'm going to do today is now I want to stop with this, right? We will visit this again. I will provide some questions on risks, right? Because I want you to introduce I want to introduce you to Kuma, who's going to be taking your next class on the 11th. So Kuma is he's got a lot of corporate experience. He's been a finance director, and he's of course one of the FCMAs, one of the CIMA pillars. And well, he will talk to you on and give you a lecture on the finance side of it. So I will urge you to do your ratio analysis and come, because Kuma is not going to do any ratios while you're there. Of course, you should have done your ratio analysis and have the questions available for Kuma to ask. And one of the things that he will also discuss is about the valuation of companies, right? And tell you, what are the some of the methods that you can use, right? So over to you, Kuma. Yeah, we can hear you, Kuma. Yes, they can. Yeah, they could hear you. Oh, we have a lot of account. I think CS here as well.
Just a case. I mean, gearing coming down from last year to this year, still high, but it has improved a lot. Yeah, that's correct. You're right. Yeah, because they have earned a profit. They paid a dividend, but they had increased in retained earnings, and probably that has contributed
So guys, if there's anything that you're interested, what you can do is you can send a mail, or best is put it in the chat, right? And so that I can bring that to Kumar's notice.
Go through the case study. If there's anything that you all think, these are some of the things that came into my mind, looking at the past experiences and the past questions. These are some of the conclusions which I have come to. But if you have anything, any concerns, anything that you think, just put it out, and we will address all those things when we meet on Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Kumar. Good night, everybody.